Good afternoon, everyone. This video is to help you learn how to record macros, add those macros to a switchboard, and then provide security for your database. So it's threefold. First, I'm going to create two macros. And the database that I'm going to use, you probably don't have this database, but really all you have to do is find some database that has at least one report and one form in it. So go ahead and open up any kind of database you want. I'm going to open up this database. And as you can see, as I scroll down, I have 4 forms to pick from and 2 reports. So I'm good to go because I'm only going to create 2 macros. One macro to open a form and one macro to open a report. Okay, now that you have your database open and you've got at least one form and one report to use, I'm going to create 2 macros first. So we'll get the macros created and then we'll go from there. So as we've learned, to create everything new, we go to the Create ribbon. And I've got tables and I got queries and I got forms and report, and then there's macros. So I'm going to click on this button that says macro. And this comes up with a green plus sign. And what this is asking for is, what action do you want this macro to do? And the action that I want this first macro to do is to open a form. So I drop this arrow down, and they're in alphabetical order, and I'll scroll down until I see Open Form. And I click on it. Okay, for this particular macro, I've got to do 3 things. I've done open form, but now I've got to specify which form it is that I should open, or the macro should open. And this is important because if you leave this blank, you will totally confuse Access and it won't know which form to open up. So I'm going to drop this arrow down, and I'm going to pick the one called Form Donor. Now, you pick whatever form you have on there that you would like to use. Okay. The second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it what view to open up into. If I drop this arrow down, I have a number of different views that I can have this open up into, and I'm going to doubt that you're ever going to want to use it to open it up in Design View. But Form View is a good form to open up, a good view to open up into, because we can use the form to do a number of things in that view. Okay? The third and final thing that we have to do in this is decide what we want to use this form for. We can use it to add data, we can use it to edit data, or just as read-only to view data. I'm going to use this form to add data, so I'm going to go down here where it says Data Mode and drop the arrow down to see my options, and I'm going to pick Add. Okay, really, I am done with this first macro. That's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to close the macro, and in the process it will say, do you want to save it? And I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to call it Open Form. And click OK. And I've created my first macro, which if you go over to the navigation pane and scroll down, you will see it listed there called Open Form. Now, I'm going to create my second and final one by again making sure I'm on the Create ribbon. Go to Macro, click, but this one I want the action to be Open Report. So I drop the arrow down and I choose Open Report. Again, it's essential that I pick which report it is that I want it to open. So I'm going to drop the arrow down and I'm going to pick Report Donor. Again, you pick the report that you specifically wanted to open. Again, I have to tell it what view to open up into, and I've got a number of different choices. And for this one, since a report is only used to view data, you can't add data in a report, you can't edit, I'm going to choose Print Preview. Okay. Now, there is no data mode, since I can't do anything with data in a report, but view it. So I'm done. I'm already done. Pick the report you want and what view. And now I'm going to close this. And again, I'm going to save changes. And I'm going to call this Open Report. And click OK. All right. Again, if I scroll down, there are my 2 macros that I just took the time to record. If you want to test them, you can just double click on Open Form and it should open up your form just like that. I'll close that form, and now I'm going to test the Open Report macro by double clicking on Open Report, and there's my report in Print Preview. I have to close this button here, or use this button to close it out of Print Preview, and they're working. So I've got my 2 macros done. Now for step 2, I want to take these two macros and I want to create a switchboard in which it's a blank form and there will only be two buttons on this form when I'm all done with it. One button that the user will click on to open the macro called Open Form, and another button that they can click on to open the report. So the way I'm going to do that now is I'm going to go to the Create ribbon yet again, and I'm going to create a form in Design View, Form Design. I have a blank slate, yet again, nothing but dots. Okay, so now it's up to me to create my masterpiece. To add a command button on here, we're going to use this button up in the ribbon with the XXXX on it. I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to click inside my form. Anywhere you want, but somewhere where it makes sense, like right here. And as soon as I click, this wizard comes up. Now, I'm going to go down to where it says Miscellaneous on this first screen, because Miscellaneous is where I'm going to find the action that says Run Macro, which is exactly what I want this button to do. So I click on Run Macro, and now I'm ready to go to the next step. So I click Next. This step says which macro would you like this button to run. Since I have two of them, I have to pick now, and for this one, I want it to open the form. So I click on Open Form and click Next. Now, I'm going to elect to put the text of Run Macro on the button. You can put text here if you want to that says open the form called whatever, but I'm going to just leave it as Run Macro. You can also put a picture on the button if you want by clicking Picture and maybe clicking Show Pictures here where you can scroll up and down and find some pictures if you want. But again, I'm going to leave it as text Run Macro. Click Next. This don't worry about, so we're going to just immediately click Finish, and I've got my first button on there. Now, if this is all I do, the user won't know what that button actually does, since I elected not to put text on there except for Run Macro. That's not very that doesn't let the user know what that button's going to do. So I'm going to put a label control over here that will specifically tell the user what this is going to do. So I click the AA, which is my label control, and I'm going to click right next to my button, and I'm going to say, this will open the form called FRM Donor, and hit Enter. Okay, now they know what that button will do. Now I got to add one more button, and that's to run the Open Report macro. So I click the XXX, I click underneath this button, Miscellaneous, following the same kind of steps here, Run Macro, Next, Open Report, Next, okay, again I'm going to make it say text, Run Macro, Next, don't worry about that, Finish, okay. Now I'm going to add a label control next to this one, AA, click, this will open the report called RPT Donor. All right. Well, I'm going to go out to Form View and see what it looks like. There are the two buttons. I'll test them by clicking here. It opens up the form. I'll close the form, click this one, and it opens up the report in Print Preview. You just created a switchboard. Now, as I close this form, and I'm going to say yes to save and changes. I don't want to say no and have to redo everything, so I'm going to click yes, and I'm going to call it switchboard just so it makes it easy for me to know which one it is, and click OK. Perfect. We're 2/3 done. We've created our two macros, and we've created our switchboard to run those macros. Okay? And a switchboard can have as many buttons on it as you want, and you can record as many macros as you want in a database. Okay, third and final thing that I'm going to cover in this video is how to add security to your database so that the user can't get to the navigation pane, etc. All they're going to be able to do is open up the database, and it will automatically open up the switchboard form, and all they're going to be able to do is click those two buttons, and so you're kind of controlling where they can go. To set up the security, I'm going to go to File drop-down menu, which is known as Backstage View. I'm going to go to Options, and I'm going to go to Current Database. Now, out here where it says Display Form, and it currently says None, I can specify that when it opens up, when the database opens up from now on, I want it to open up the switchboard form, the one that we added the buttons to. This is very important to make sure that it does this. Open form, click the down arrow, and pick the name of the form that you created with the buttons on it. Now, to prevent them from being able to get behind the scenes and everything else, I'm going to uncheck all of these boxes, except for this one. This one does not matter, display document tabs. I'm just going to uncheck that, uncheck, uncheck, keep unchecking these boxes. Display navigation pane uncheck, all the way down to where it says Name Autocorrect Options. I'm unchecking every single box. The only one that remains checked is this Display Document Tabs. Okay? I click OK, and a message comes up and says all of that security that you set up will not take place until you actually close the database and then try to reopen it. So I'm going to see if it works. I'm going to click OK and close my database, and then I'm going to reopen my database by double-clicking on it. And as you can see, the only thing that comes up is my switchboard with my two buttons on it, and the user cannot get to all my tables and queries and everything else. Okay? So they can click here, it opens up the form. They can click here, and it opens up the report. All right. Now, the question came up at the very end of class was, well, okay, we've blocked the user from getting behind the scenes, but we've also technically blocked ourselves. How can I get behind the scenes? So I'm going to close the database, and the trick to this is if you hold down your Shift key as your database is opening. Do not let go of the Shift key until you see that the database is fully opened. So if I do that, hold down the Shift key, double click to open up my database, it bypasses my security and allows me to get behind the scenes. So it's holding down your Shift key as you open up the database. Okay, I hope this helps. These will be posted out in Blackboard, and I appreciate it, and have a great day. Thank you.